Chapter 41 Development of Soul Technique in Martial Soul. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 41, Developing Soul Skills and Martial Souls. Quan realized the rhinoceros seal does double duty, working as both a detector and an attack. Once he marks someone, Quan can track them. He can also choose whether or not to detonate the mark. As the first soul skill in over 500 years, the rhinoceros seal is way more powerful than he even imagined. Based on the soul beast and its age alone, Quan Yi's first soul skill rivals the second soul skill of many soul masters. It's both strong and versatile. This was Quan Yi's latest discovery about his own soul skill. Quan Yi picked up another stone. His face turning serious, he focused his soul power to reinforce his hands, boosting their strength and defense. Then, he gripped the stone in his left hand, covering his left hand with his right. Now, his left hand acted like the barrel of a gun, the stone its bullet. His right hand blocked the back of the barrel, while the open end pointed forward. Quan Yi took a deep breath, focusing his mind. Fire, boom, star. Quan Yi detonated the stone in his hand. The point-blank explosion unleashed a massive roar. The rock instantly shattered into fragments, spraying from Quan Yi's muzzle like a shotgun blast. A cloud of stone shrapnel filled the space in front of him. The force of the explosion almost tore his hands apart, but Quan Yi, expecting it, used his hand's strength to hold everything together. Even with the warning, the recoil nearly knocked him over. Luckily, the Gang and Liang gauntlets gave him double protection. Otherwise, Quan Yi figured this move would have been a suicide attack, hurting him just as much as the enemy, but the result was pretty good. The range wasn't amazing, but it packed a punch. He saw stone fragments embedded deep in the ground ahead. Success. Quan Yi was stoked. This was another way to use his first soul skill. Rhinoceros seal, variant, shotgun mode. Detonating the seal to launch stone fragments. Short range, but widespread. If I swapped stones for iron balls, it'd be even deadlier. Quan Yi analyzed the shotgun mode's pros and cons, and even came up with ways to improve it. Iron balls would be harder and denser than stone, meaning each fragment would pack more weight and punch. Guess I need to stock up on iron balls. Quan Yi shook his hand to ease the tension. The explosion had made his hand numb and shaky. Even with the gauntlet's protection, the force still got through. Can't spam this move. It leaves me open afterward. For now, it's a last resort. Quan Yi didn't have the strength to spam the shotgun mode yet. Still, he'd proved it could work, which made him happy. After resting until his arms and hands felt better, Quan Yi used the remaining stones. He started working on his throwing technique. He placed a stone marked with the rhinoceros seal 30 meters away, using it as a target to practice his accuracy. Quan Yi was a natural, thanks to his hands' flexibility and stability, giving him an edge when throwing. After a few throws, Quan Yi closed his eyes, relying solely on the mark to guide him. The results were surprisingly good. Because the stones had marks on them, Quan Yi could trace their flight paths in his mind each time he threw. Then, he fine-tuned the trajectory by adjusting his release point. Using this method, he was hitting the target 80 or 90% of the time. Soon Quan Yi was completely absorbed in the satisfaction of nailing each shot. He switched hands, practicing his throwing ability. With the dual talent of distraction, Quan Yi made the most of it. The hand armor martial soul boosted his throwing as well. The hand armor martial spirit can enhance the opponent's hand in a comprehensive way. Among them, the flexibility and stability of the opponent's hand alone are already the talents that many shooters or pitchers dream of. As time passed, Quan Yi slowly understood more about the characteristics and potential of his martial soul. He decided to add throwing and soul skill development to his training schedule. Luckily, he had some free time that afternoon to work on them. Quan Yi realized his entire day was packed with training. He had no free time for anything else, but instead of being bored, Quan Yi loved it. This was the extraordinary world he dreamed of, the cool soul skills and intense battles that had always drawn him in, but in this world, you had to be strong to fully experience it. Now that he was here, Quan Yi wasn't about to waste his time. After an hour of throwing practice, half an hour for each hand, the results were excellent, but instead of pushing himself, he stopped. Quan Yi was thinking clearly. Throwing and shotgun modes relied on external objects. They were just additions, not core strengths. He didn't want to spend too much time on them. what Izumi really wanted to do next was find a way to strengthen the trunk. Increase your own long-range attack means without relying on external forces. His fight with teacher Bai Yan had given him some ideas. Quan raised his right hand, palm up, as he channeled soul power into his martial soul. The red pattern on the gauntlet glowed brighter. A ball of flame appeared in his palm. Thanks to his fire immunity, Quan didn't feel any heat. The flames shifted under his control. And because he'd leveled up his soul power and had the soul ring's blessing, Quan Yi's flames were hotter than before. Quan Yi stared at the fireball and nodded. The temperature of the flame became higher, and it was still easy to control. After testing his control and the flame's power, Quan Yi suddenly poured in more soul power. The palm-sized flame swelled into a basketball-sized fireball. Then, with a snap, Quan Yi forced the basketball-sized fireball back down to palm size, but the fireball was brighter and hotter than before. It also felt more solid, like a real object. Quan Yi compressed the fireball even further. He slowly raised his right hand, palm up, and launched the fireball. Flame bomb, that the blazing fireball shot into the sky, boom, star, the explosion sent fiery sparks raining down like shooting stars. Chapter 42 Control of Fire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A flash of excitement lit up Quan Yi's eyes. He was imitating Huo Wu's first soul skill, as a top-tier fire attribute spirit master, with the sun gauntlet spirit. Conjuring fireballs and launching them was easy. Quan Yi didn't fully grasp the mechanics of Huo Wu's ability, but that didn't stop him from his own interpretation, focusing his flames and then using their power to propel them. Quan Yi's fireballs were faster than a stone thrown by hand, while they lacked the raw explosive power of the rhinoceros seal. They were comparable to Huo Wu's first soul skill, plus, they only consumed about half the spirit power of the rhinoceros seal. Of course, that was for now. Quan Yi's flame control only reached that level. Compressing the flames was a huge challenge to his control. His experience with practicing hardness and sharpness gave him significant insight into controlling his spirit. This experience also helped him manage flames, which is why he could imitate the ability so quickly. However, flame was inherently unstable and dangerous energy. There was a limit to how much flame he could steadily control. If he pumped in too much spirit power, the compressed fireball would explode. He'd been wanting to control and use flames for a while. Now, he had a way to practice, creating bigger fireballs, compressing them, and launching them. This would steadily improve his flame control. Quan Yi was the kind of person who acted on his ideas immediately. He started training right away, but a wave of exhaustion suddenly washed over him, and his spirit power was running low. Too many grenades at noon. The battle at noon had drained him, though a bit disappointing. Quan Yi couldn't push himself further. He sat cross-legged and began meditating. Meanwhile, at the principal's office, after finishing combat training, Bai Yan went to see the principal. Knock, knock. Come in. Bai Yan opened the door. Hello, principal. She saw Shui Yuan working at his desk, but Shui Yuan immediately stopped and stood up to greet her. Oh, Bai, come in. Shui Yuan welcomed Bai Yan. Bai Yan took a seat. They were well acquainted. Bai Yan, like Shui Yuan, was a blazing academy graduate, and they had known each other for years. Principal, I just finished combat training with Quan Yi and Huo Wu. Bai Yan cut straight to the point. Shui Yuan's expression turned serious, and his tone became a bit rushed. How did it go? That the training of Quan Yi and Huo Wu was a major priority for the academy, so Shui Yuan was very interested in the results. Bai Yan's face relaxed, and a smile touched her lips. Much better than expected. Shui Yuan knew that Bai Yan was a serious and responsible teacher, known for her straightforwardness. Her word was reliable. Okay, that's a relief. Tell me everything. Shui Yuan sighed in relief, but his curiosity was piqued. Seeing Bai Yan so cheerful meant she was very pleased with Quan Yi and Huo Wu's performance. He was eager to know the details. Bai Yan recounted the entire battle. Her skill as a gifted class teacher was clear. Through her narration, Shui Yuan felt like he was there. This is beyond anything I imagined. After hearing the account, Shui Yuan was surprised and delighted. If it weren't for Bai Yan, he wouldn't have believed it. It sounded like something out of a fantasy novel. Especially Quan Yi's performance reminded Shui Yuan of the famous Haotian Douluo from years ago. As the youngest titled Douluo on the continent, Haotian Douluo was the idol of many young spirit masters. Now, Quan had the potential to replace Haotian Douluo as the youngest. Shui Yuan leaned back in his chair, trying to process his thoughts. Bai Yan waited quietly. After a moment, Shui Yuan calmed down. What's your evaluation? You've been working closely with them, so you must have a deeper understanding than I do. They both have bright futures, Bai Yan said cautiously after a moment. Quan, in terms of strength and spirit skills, is among the best on the continent. He's steady, patient, courageous, resourceful. He has the presence of a general. He can't be treated like an ordinary child. Huo Wu, while not as naturally gifted as Quan, is still excellent. He's got a straightforward personality, but can be prone to extremes. His explosive power is great, but success can be inconsistent. Fortunately, he has someone who surpasses him in every way. Quan is good for his future. The image of Quan hugging Huo Wu flashed through Bai Yan's mind, and a smile touched her face. It seems you think very highly of them. But your teaching load will increase. Do you have any plans? Shui Yuan was worried that Bai Yan would struggle under the pressure. After all, teaching two top geniuses was a heavy burden for any teacher. I plan to maintain the current teaching plan. Daily combat training. Bai Yan seemed calm and collected. Can I hear your reasoning? Shui Yuan was surprised by her decision. He'd expected her to add courses, but she didn't seem to have that in mind. Principal, their main task now isn't fighting, it's cultivating. It's a time of rapid spirit power growth. Overloading them will only hinder their progress. It would be counterproductive. Bai Yan calmly explained her views. Shui Yuan lowered his head, thinking, indeed, spirit power growth was the most important thing. He realized he'd been blinded by their genius and forgotten the basics. That makes sense. I was just a bit anxious. From now on, you have full control over their training. I trust your judgment. Bai Yan's performance reassured Shui Yuan, and he decided to trust her. Thank you for the trust. Upon hearing Shui Yuan's decision, Bai Yan stood up from her seat and replied, Principal, don't worry. I won't let you down. Chapter 43 Bai Yan's first soul skill is weak. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Edited content Chapter 43, Bai Yan's first soul skill, really that weak? School was back in session, and it was another bright, sunny day. Teacher Bai Yan was at the podium, teaching as usual, but Quan was totally absorbed in the books he'd borrowed from the library. Huo Wu, who was watching him, couldn't believe her eyes. After their battle the day before, she knew just how powerful teacher Bai Yan was, and she wasn't about to let her attention wander in class. But Quan was blatantly ignoring the lesson. While she admired his nerve, she was also worried he'd get called out. However, halfway through, teacher Bai Yan didn't seem to notice a thing, like she was completely oblivious. Huo Wu breathed a sigh of relief, but she had Quan all wrong. He wasn't slacking off. He was practicing multitasking. While his eyes were glued to the book, he was still listening to teacher Bai Yan's lecture. Yesterday's class had taught Quan that most of it was pretty basic, stuff he already knew, so, he decided to use the time to study on his own and work on his focus. That way, he could keep up with the class and be ready if the teacher called on him. A win-win. That's all for today's lesson. Class dismissed. Bai Yan announced the end of class and headed out, giving Quan and Huo Wu a pointed look as she left, a reminder about their afternoon training. As soon as the teacher was gone, Huo Wu rushed over to Quan. Xiao you're crazy. You can't just blow off teacher Bai Yan's class like that. I wasn't blowing it off. I heard everything she said, Quan said truthfully, but Huo Wu clearly didn't believe him. Quan didn't try to argue. Let's go. We have training at noon. If we finish early, we'll have more time to chill this afternoon. Huo Wu just shrugged. Alright, let's go. After lunch, they went to their usual spot under the big tree near the training grounds. Quan started reading, while Huo Wu took a nap. With practice taking up so much of his time, Quan Yi's study time was seriously cut short. which is why he decided to read during class. Even though training all day was exhausting, he wasn't about to give up on reading. It was too important for understanding the world. In the afternoon, teacher Bai Yan showed up right on time. First things first, I want to let you know about the combat training schedule. 5 days a week, at this time, we'll have a session. It's not too much, but I want you both to give it everything you've got every time. Bai Yan outlined her teaching plans. Yes, ma'am. Quan and Huo Wu answered together. Bai Yan nodded. Before we start today, I'd like to hear what you thought about yesterday's battle. Huo Wu's eyes darted around nervously, and Bai Yan noticed. Huo Wu, you're up first. Oh, okay. Huo Wu cursed her luck. She replayed the battle in her mind, took a deep breath, and started giving her thoughts. The biggest thing I realized was how weak I am in close combat. If it wasn't for Quan, I wouldn't have lasted a single move. That was the thing that had really stuck with her. Bai Yan nodded approvingly. Good. You haven't let the victory go to your head. But don't worry too much. You're a control-type fighter. If you focus on that, you'll have plenty of ways to handle close combat situations. Bai Yan knew that Huo Wu only had one soul skill, so she was bound to struggle in areas she wasn't strong in. Then, she turned to Quan. Quan, I want to hear your thoughts too. Quan had already given these things a lot of thought and was already working on his weaknesses, so, he looked calm and gave his honest opinion. Teacher, my strengths and weaknesses are pretty clear. I'm good at close combat, but not so good at long-range attacks. And I'm not as fast as an agility-type fighter. Bai Yan was pleased with his analysis. He was a student who didn't need much hand-holding. That morning, she'd seen him reading outside material, and she usually wouldn't approve. But when she saw that the books he was reading were actually pretty advanced, she decided to let it slide. Alright, that's a good summary. But I want to remind you that you're a power attack type. Those weaknesses you mentioned are common to all power attack types. So, you should focus on maximizing your strengths, not trying to fix every little thing. Quan was a little confused. Focus on strengths. Wouldn't that mean ignoring weaknesses? Bai Yan continued, remember my first soul skill, right? Huo Wu nodded quickly. It was that skill that had drained all her energy yesterday. Did you notice anything unusual about it? Huo Wu was puzzled, but Quan was already thinking hard. Actually, yeah, there was something. Teacher Bai Yan's words triggered something in his mind. After a moment, he realized what it was. Bai Yan's eyes lit up, and Huo Wu was desperate to know the answer. Xiaoyi, don't keep us in suspense. Tell me. Quan shared his thoughts, with both Bai Yan and Huo Wu hanging on his every word. Teacher, please forgive my boldness, but your first soul skill seems kind of weak. Quan criticized Bai Yan's skill without holding back, and Huo Wu's eyes went wide with fear. What are you saying? Huo Wu grabbed Quan Yi's arm and pleaded, apologize to the teacher right now, that he sounded like he was challenging the teacher, and she was terrified. She shook his arm and quickly tried to explain to Bai Yan. Teacher, he didn't mean it. Ha 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 ha. Bai Yan's sudden laughter caught Huo Wu off guard. Shouldn't she be angry? Quan, you're sharp. Huo Wu, don't worry. He's right. My first soul skill is actually pretty weak. Huo Wu was completely lost. What was going on? Weak? But... Teacher, your first soul skill was hard to deal with, wasn't it? She'd felt the full force of Bai Yan's attack. It had been anything but weak. Why were these two saying otherwise? Huo Wu was completely confused. Chapter 44 Combined Soul Skills. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 44, Combined Soul Skills. Bai Yan, smiling, turned to Quan. Alright, Quan, let's hear your thoughts. Quan gathered himself and began. Xiao Wu, remember this, the level difference between you and Teacher Bai Yan. Even with Teacher Bai Yan limiting his soul power, he's still 7 levels above you. Yet, you're evenly matched. Actually, if your soul power hits level 20, your first soul skill will completely overpower teacher Bai Yan's. Right, Huowu realized, Quan Yi's words snapping her out of it. Bai Yan followed up, good, you've been observant. Anything else? Pleased with Quan Yi's sharp mind, Bai Yan's competitive spirit was piqued, and he wanted to see what else the boy had noticed. Well, the teacher's first soul skill actually hinders his speed, which is his advantage as an agility-based soul master. To attack, he needs to flap his wings, which slows him down. Plus, the flame feather attack isn't that fast to begin with, so it's not much of a threat to fighting spirit masters at the same level. Basically, it's not powerful, not fast, and it limits his own movements. Huowu was amazed that Quan Yi could analyze so much from a simple fight. Bai Yan was genuinely surprised. Is this kid really only 6? He studied Quan Yi, who was almost as tall as him, and a seed of doubt took root in his mind. You're right, your analysis is spot on. Flame feather is pretty useless to me. Honestly, it's more of a hindrance. Bai Yan's disappointment with the skill was clear. The conclusion is this, it's more of an attack-type skill than an agility-type one. But my martial soul isn't great at strength or intense flames, so I can't use it to its full potential. Bai Yan looked at Quan Yi as he spoke. Like I said before, focus on your strengths. That's why. When absorbing spirit rings, trying to cover your weaknesses is usually a waste. I hope you don't make the same mistake I did. This was Bai Yan's honest advice, a sincere warning to Quan Yi and Huowu. Yes, teacher. Quan Yi and Huowu recognized Bai Yan's good intentions, and their respect for him deepened. The focus Bai Yan mentioned was about choosing spirit rings, not changing your fighting style. Quan Yi agreed with Bai Yan on this point. However, Quan Yi had a unique advantage, the powerful fire control that came with his martial soul. He could control the invisible flame in his palm. He didn't need a spirit ring that didn't fit his strengths, he could make up for his weaknesses in other ways. As he understood his martial soul better, Quan Yi also gained a deeper understanding of the Liang glove's power. Alright, that's it for the pre-battle analysis. Today is like yesterday. You have 15 minutes to strategize. Bai Yan lit a stick of incense and closed his eyes to rest. This time, Huowu grabbed Quan Yi's hand and ran off to strategize. Her fighting spirit was high today. Yesterday's battle had clearly boosted her confidence. But a hint of worry still lingered on her face. What do we do? After yesterday, the teacher will definitely be guarding against our ranged attacks. We'll be on the defensive. Yesterday's tactic relied on surprise, but now that teacher Bai Yan knew their cards, it would be hard to pull off again. Huowu knew she was the weak point. If the teacher kited her and drained her soul power, they were done for, but Quan Yi just smiled mysteriously. No, the teacher will only be guarding against your ranged attacks. He pointed at Huowu. Me? Huowu asked, confused. Quan Yi leaned in and whispered his plan in her ear. A quarter of an hour flew by. As the incense burned out, Bai Yan slowly opened his eyes. Quan Yi and Huowu were in formation, one behind the other. But this time, they both had stones tied to their hands and waists. Well, bringing extra ammo. Smart move, Bai Yan said expressionlessly, though he secretly approved of their adaptation. This was Quan Yi's plan. Now that their hidden tactics were known, they would bring them out into the open. It would make it easier for Quan Yi and Huowu to launch attacks and act as a deterrent. Bai Yan lit another stick of incense. I declare the battle officially begins. Bai Yan immediately summoned his martial spirit, and his figure grew taller. He didn't bother with a probing attack this time. He shot straight into the sky, heading right for Huowu. Huowu and Quan Yi summoned their martial spirits at the same time, and a brilliant light flashed around them. Quan Yi stayed on guard for ground attacks, shielding Huowu. Facing Bai Yan's attack, Huowu looked calm, like she was prepared. She raised her right hand, the stone held tight, and aimed at the white flames in the sky. Bai Yan observed Huowu, unconcerned. He already knew about her egg within an egg trick, using explosions for a double boost and longer range. But knowing it was coming, he could easily dodge the blast radius. He had also spotted the weakness of that second push. Flame Feather Attack. Flame Feather Attack. 6 red arrows rained down from the sky, targeting Huowu. Flame Bombs. The flaming bullets, wrapped in stones, shot toward the arrows. The moment they collided, a massive explosion rocked the sky. The 6 feathered arrows were instantly obliterated. Even in the air, Bai Yan could feel the intense vibration of the air on his skin. The power was incredible. The explosion was far stronger than a normal fire dance flame bomb. At that moment, Quan detonated the rhinoceros seal. The combined explosion of the flame bomb and the rhinoceros seal amplified the power many times over. The high temperature of the flame bomb combined with the explosive force of the rhinoceros seal to form a simple combined soul skill. Seeing the power of this combined skill, Bai Yan didn't feel threatened. He felt a sense of relief. So, this is your limit. Bai Yan's voice echoed from above. This combined skill had a fatal flaw: instability. Launching the soul skills in 2 separate steps demanded superb control. But flame itself was unstable energy. If outside factors interfered with Huowu's flame bullets, they wouldn't launch accurately. Bai Yan just needed to land a flame feather attack to drain both Quan and Huowu's soul power. Therefore, while this combination was powerful, it wasn't a real threat to Bai Yan. Chapter 45 One More Shot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 45, One More Shot. Even though Bai Yan had shut down her attack, Huowu didn't lose heart. Quan had planned for this. Xiao Wu, stick to the plan, Quan murmured to Huowu. Huowu immediately pulled another stone from her belt. Flame Bomb. Bai Yan, with a flick of her wrist, launched 3 feathered arrows at Huowu's flame bomb. Then, she rapidly gained altitude to avoid follow-up attacks. Boom! Instead of the massive explosion Bai Yan expected, this one was just a simple flame burst. Had Quan slipped up? Bai Yan wondered. No way. Bai Yan refused to believe Quan would make a mistake at such a crucial moment. That stone was bait, a decoy. Bai Yan realized it in a flash. A slight smile touched the corner of her lips. She figured it had to be one of Quan Yi's tricks, throwing in a fake stone to mess with her judgment and conserve soul power for a longer fight. He's tricky, alright. Quan Yi's strength and strategy were proving to be a real pain. Bai Yan didn't want to burn through too much soul power. She still had to deal with Quan after taking out Huowu, but even handling Huowu alone was costing her, and the payoff wasn't worth it. Flame Feather Assault. Even so, Bai Yan wasn't about to hold back. Direct confrontation was still the surest bet. She decided to repeat her earlier tactic, hoping to exhaust Huowu's soul power through sheer volume. Once Huowu was drained, they couldn't use their combined techniques, leaving Bai Yan free to focus on Quan. Facing Bai Yan's onslaught, Huowu was laser-focused. But she felt that Bai Yan's attacks weren't as intense as the day before. Huowu was right. The increased launch distance of her and Quan Yi's second volley allowed them to target Bai Yan directly. Because of this, Bai Yan had to divert some energy to defense. Which, in turn, weakened her attacks and made them easier for Huowu to deal with. Still, things didn't look great for Huowu and Quan. Huowu's limited soul power was a serious weakness. Both Huowu and Bai Yan were playing it safe, and Bai Yan only dared to probe near the edge of her flame feather range. Time crawled by. Huowu's attacks were ineffective, and she was running low on soul power and stones. Quan, I'm almost out of juice. Huowu said, sounding stressed. Quan was also locked on Bai Yan's position. She was high up, showing no signs of coming down. She only descended to attack, immediately rising again afterward. Bai Yan was playing it smart, wary of Huowu's combos. Quan knew. Quan sensed that Huowu only had 2 rhinoceros seals left, enough soul power for 2 more shots. Xiao Wu, get ready. This last push decides everything. Hearing Quan Yi's command, Huowu instantly grabbed the last 2 stones with the rhinoceros seals. She was aiming to recreate yesterday's double flame bomb, but with an upgrade, the rhinoceros seal. Bai Yan immediately recognized Huowu's plan. She could tell Huowu was on her last legs, ready to go all in. Bai Yan flapped her wings and quickly widened the gap. With Quan Yi's seal added, Huo Wu's double flame bomb had too many unpredictable elements. If Bai Yan got caught in the blast at that range, even her level 40 soul power might not save her from the impact. However, Bai Yan quickly noticed that Huo Wu wasn't channeling her soul power at all. Instead, she held 2 flame bullets in her hands. The effect was like 2 long-range cannons, just sitting there forced Bai Yan to reconsider. Huo Wu was waiting for the moment Bai Yan dropped. Realizing this, Bai Yan didn't dare to make a move. Damn it, this can't go on. Bai Yan's face turned serious. She realized how much time had slipped away. Being so careful had cost her. Bai Yan knew she could block the first flame bomb with her soul skill, but the resulting explosion would block her vision. All those bits of rock and sparks flying right in her face would make it hard to target the second one. Worse, Quan Yi's rhinoceros seal, unlike Huo Wu's flame bombs, could detonate on command. Even if Bai Yan dodged the stone, Quan Yi could still time the explosion. Huo Wu and Bai Yan were deadlocked, watching each other's every twitch for any opening. No. As more time passed, Bai Yan realized she was cornered. This fight had a time limit, and Huo Wu could hold out. Bai Yan couldn't afford to. The situation was turning against her. After some quick thinking, Bai Yan made up her mind and dived down. Here she comes. Huo Wu and Quan Yi perked up, eyes glued on Bai Yan. Bai Yan attacked first, launching 3 flame feathers. Huo Wu poured the rest of her soul power into her hands, coating the stones in flames. 2 orange fireballs appeared. The flame bombs were fired in quick succession. Huo Wu's first flame bomb collided head-on with Bai Yan's attack. Quan Yi didn't hesitate. She triggered the rhinoceros seal. Boom! Instantly, the sky lit up with blinding fire. The intense light made Bai Yan squint, temporarily blinding her, but Bai Yan no longer needed to see the second flame bomb. She didn't retreat skyward. Instead, she sped up her descent, using her right wing to shield her face. The sparks and fragments couldn't hurt her now. Bai Yan had changed her pattern at the last second. Flame bullets traveled in a straight line, and Quan Yi's rhinoceros seal could only move straight ahead. The flash was annoying, but it was indiscriminate, affecting everyone equally, including Quan Yi and Huo Wu. Bai Yan had used the flash to mask her movements. Boom! The second explosion went off right behind Bai Yan's head. Gotcha! Bai Yan sighed with relief. Huo Wu's combo was clever, but a little too naive. Against a soul master with far more real-world experience, pulling the same trick twice was a rookie move. Bai Yan lowered her wing, ready to see if Huo Wu could still fight back, but the moment she turned her eyes towards Huo Wu, she saw a red fireball staring back at her. Bai Yan couldn't believe it. Huo Wu needed time to recast the flame bullet, and as far as she knew, Huo Wu should be all out of soul power by now. Looking closer, Bai Yan saw it wasn't Huo Wu behind the fireball, but Quan Yi. How could this be? Bai Yan struggled to regain control, but she was too close and falling too fast. She could only raise her arms to block once more. This scene felt strangely familiar to Bai Yan. Quan Yi had been waiting this whole time, reading Bai Yan like an open book. No, even more, it was Quan Yi who had led Bai Yan here on purpose. Sorry, teacher. The fireball in Quan Yi's hand was a homemade flame bullet. Quan Yi wasn't about to go soft at this critical moment. The Yen Dan was ready to launch. Flame bomb. The red meteor blazed, leaving a crimson trail, and slammed into Bai Yan. Chapter 46 Quan 1 Strategy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 46, Quan Yi's Strategy. This time, it wasn't Huo Wu and Quan Yi's combined soul skills, but Quan Yi's solo act. He combined the rhinoceros seal with his rudimentary flame bomb, and the powerful explosion kicked up a serious wind. Still, Quan Yi kept his eyes peeled, not letting his guard down for a second. He hadn't seen Bai Yan touch down yet. Then, he heard coughing from the center of the smoke cloud. Cough, cough, cough. As the smoke cleared, Bai Yan materialized, wreathed in flames, radiating intense pressure. She was like a fiery phoenix, elegant and imposing. Quan Yi figured it had to be another of her soul skills. Bai Yan touched down gently, the flames receding. Bravo! Bravo! You passed the test, Bai Yan said, clapping approvingly. Quan Yi and Huo Wu both let out a sigh of relief, then exchanged a smile. Seeing Huo Wu swaying slightly, Quan Yi reached out to steady her. Bai Yan walked over to them, a helpless look on her face. You two are full of surprises. You're already operating beyond level 40. Bai Yan realized she'd underestimated them. Limiting her own soul power to level 40, she hadn't even been able to beat Huowu. Quan Yi, was that your own soul skill at the end? Bai Yan was dying to know about that final flame bomb. She had a hunch, but she needed confirmation. Yeah, I cooked that one up, imitating Huowu's flame skills, Quan Yi said casually. Bai Yan was amazed that he could stay so calm, but she had another question burning in her mind. How long did it take you to develop it? Bai Yan asked. Just an afternoon, Quan Yi said, holding back that it had only taken one try. Even that was enough to stun Bai Yan. He was a true genius. To create a soul skill in a day was beyond the reach of other soul masters. A powerful martial soul and high innate soul power were important, sure, but did they really define talent? No, they only showed luck, not ability. Too many gifted soul masters squandered their potential, while others with less were able to forge their own path through sheer skill. Self-created soul skills were the real yardstick. I thought I'd overestimated you, but I guess I still underestimated you, Bai Yan said, genuinely impressed. Teacher, you're too kind, Quan Yi said, a little shy. He felt she was exaggerating. He knew he was using his martial soul's fire control ability to imitate, so it wasn't strictly a creation. Still, that fire control gave him a freedom he hadn't had before, were spirit rings the only way to get soul skills. The Sun Gauntlet was all the proof Quan Yi needed. It controlled fire, meaning Quan Yi could manipulate flames at will. Other soul masters needed spirit rings to unleash fire. Quan Yi just needed his soul power and martial soul. He could copy Huowu's flame bullets in a heartbeat. The Sun Gauntlet was king of all fire types. They could only bow before Quan Yi's brilliance. Bai Yan turned to Huowu, who was relying on Quan Yi for support, her soul power spent. Huowu, I'm impressed with your ambidextrous control. That takes serious skill. And I admire your tenacity. Huowu might not shine as brightly as Quan Yi, but Bai Yan saw her as an excellent soul master, gifted and driven. What stood out most was her ability to unleash incredible power at the last possible moment. That mental fortitude was something Bai Yan valued highly. Plus, Quan Yi pushed her. You needed a goal, and Quan Yi was it for Huowu. Huowu, I hope you keep that never-give-up spirit. Okay, you two should get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow. Like yesterday, Bai Yan praised them briefly, then told them to rest up and left. No time wasted. Given their exhaustion, she decided to save the analysis and feedback for the next day. Help me over there, so I can rest, Huowu said, pointing to an open spot. She was beat and just wanted to sit down. I can carry you back to the dorm, Quan Yi offered, planning to hit the practice field again later. Huowu's face flushed, remembering the awkward trip from the day before. No, that's okay. I'll just sit for a bit. I don't want to be a bother. She couldn't face a repeat of yesterday. It's no problem, you weigh next to nothing, Quan Yi said, oblivious. He figured she was worried about getting hurt. Seeing his determination, Huowu hesitated, then made up her mind. Okay, but could you give me a piggyback? That way, you won't have to work as hard. Sure thing. On the way back, Huowu noticed fewer people staring, and she secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Her stiff body relaxed, and her feet started swinging back and forth. Xiaoyi, how did you know the teacher would go down instead of up? Huowu asked, curious. She gazed at the back of his head, impressed by his smarts. He hadn't told her much about his plan. He just asked her to give it her all. She didn't know his strategy, just that she needed to use the combined soul skills at the last second. It's because she was too focused on the rhinoceros seal and your long-range attacks to notice me. Under pressure, she was bound to take a risk and try to bait you into using your soul skills. With her experience, the safest bet was to move toward me. Compared to your fire bombs, she probably thought my stones would be easier to dodge, but I couldn't have done it without you. If you hadn't been so steady, she never would have been forced into that position. That was why he'd kept her in the dark. He didn't want her to ease up if she knew his plan. Only by giving it their all could they fool Bai Yan. Quan Yi praised Huowu's strength. her fighting instincts far beyond the norm. She was only 6 years old, there was still so much room to grow, she was a true genius. In his eyes, Quan didn't see himself that way. Everything he had was thanks to his family's support and his own hard work. If he'd been born into a peasant family, he wouldn't have been able to eat soul beast meat from the age of 2, that was why he trained so hard. He didn't want to let his family down. The book is signed. Thank you readers for your support. I will continue to work hard to write down. Chapter 47 The Lost Fire Dance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seriously? You came up with all that in 15 minutes? Huo Wu asked, amazed. 15 minutes. Quan looked surprised. It seemed she'd misunderstood something. No. You've got it all wrong. I've been strategizing on how to beat teacher Bai Yan since yesterday. Quan Yi's plans weren't some sudden stroke of genius. They were the result of careful analysis and calculation. He'd spent all his free time combining his experience and insights from their first battle, working things out step by step. Even when his body was resting, his mind was still racing. Hearing this, Huo Wu's jaw dropped, her eyes fixed on him. Suddenly, Quan Yi seemed much taller in her eyes. Huo Wu realized the biggest difference between them was their attitude. When it came to training, whether physical conditioning, soul power, cultivation, or combat practice, Quan Yi never slacked off, always giving it his all. Huo Wu felt a pressure she'd never experienced before. Even though she'd been trying her hardest these past 2 days, she still couldn't measure up to Quan Yi and had even become a burden. This was a bitter pill to swallow for someone as proud as Huo Wu. She began to seriously doubt herself. Can I really keep up with him? Quan Yi was like a blazing sun, and the closer she got, the more she felt like she was getting burned. Huo Wu fell silent. Quan Yi asked, what's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything? After a moment, she asked softly, Xiao Yi, do you think I can really catch up to you? Quan Yi understood what she meant. He hadn't expected the usually cheerful Huo Wu to get so down. I'm not going to slow down and wait for you. He didn't stop or try to comfort her. His words sounded almost harsh. Huo Wu's heart clenched. She felt a sudden wave of sadness, her heart sinking, and a lump forming in her throat. She felt her eyes start to sting and fill with tears, but she fought them back. Quan Yi, looking ahead, didn't notice her emotional shift. He took a few more steps and continued, because I see you as an opponent. Don't expect any pity from me. If you want to catch up, you're going to have to work for it. What? Huo Wu's tear-filled eyes snapped open. She suppressed the tears that were threatening to spill over, only for them to suddenly flow down her cheeks. She quickly raised her hand to wipe away the tears that almost landed on Quan Yi's shoulder. Humph, so arrogant. Of course I don't need your pity. You're just being sentimental, Huo Wu retorted, trying to sound defiant, though her voice trembled slightly. In Quan Yi's words, she'd heard his acceptance of her. That meant more than any empty comfort. Quan Yi didn't call her out on her vulnerability. He just continued walking in silence. The cloud in Huo Wu's heart dissipated. Quan Yi's words about being an opponent had ignited her fighting spirit. Quan Yi, don't get cocky. Remember this, I'll always be right behind you. The moment you slack off, I'll pass you, and I won't give you another chance. Huo Wu lifted her head, raised her right hand towards the distant sun, and declared loudly. Ha, that's terrifying, Quan Yi said, cheering up as he saw her renewed spirit, and smiling to play along. Why are you laughing? You should be more nervous, Huo Wu said, playfully slapping him on the shoulder. Nah, besides, I'm totally nervous right now. Quan Yi deeply respected Huo Wu's potential. Her talent for both cultivation and combat was among the best on the continent. He believed that if she really put in the effort, she could keep up with him. That's why he tried so hard to motivate her. If there was a huge gap in talent, Quan Yi wouldn't be so cruel as to encourage someone to chase impossible dreams, but Huo Wu was different. She was only 6 years old. It would be a shame if she got discouraged so early in life because of a temporary setback. Okay, we're almost at your dorm. Remember to get some rest. Don't push yourself when you're tired, it'll only backfire, Quan Yi warned. Got it, Huo Wu replied, jumping off his back. she looked at him, her face a little flushed, and said hesitantly, "Thank you." "You're welcome," Quan Yi said with a smile. Wu turned and hurried into the dormitory. She was embarrassed about showing her vulnerable side to Quan Yi, but at the same time, she was grateful to him, which made her shy. Quan Yi watched her enter the dormitory, then turned and headed towards the training grounds. The playground had become Quan Yi's personal training area. Arriving here, Quan Yi began practicing his soul skills and honing his control over flames. He launched his self-created soul skill, Yen Dan, wrapped in the seal of the rhinoceros, into the distance. Bang! A huge explosion echoed in front of him. This was the final move he'd used in today's battle. It was the technique with the greatest range, speed, and power that he currently possessed. Moreover, it could create a secondary explosion, further extending the attack range. Of course, Quan Yi, with his fire control abilities, could also perform a two-stage attack like Wu. But he hadn't had a chance to demonstrate it in the battle. During his training, Quan Yi had discovered a secret. His proficiency with Go and the sword greatly aided his flame control. Without that rigorous training, his ability to control flames wouldn't be nearly as advanced. The refinement of rigidity and sharpness was, in essence, the refinement of spiritual power, and controlling flames also required spiritual power. The training of sharpness and the control of fire were interconnected. Quan Yi even felt that his strength and sharpness could be considered self-created soul skills, without relying on soul rings. Soul power alone could produce a certain degree of attack and defense. This could indeed be called a self-created soul skill. It was at this moment that Quan Yi became even more curious about his grandfather, the founder of Izumi's boxing style. Bang! Bang! 2 consecutive explosions marked Quan Yi's second ejection. These precise maneuvers demanded exceptional mental fortitude, and Quan Yi possessed a certain talent in that area. However, Quan Yi hadn't practiced this move much. It had a major flaw. The rhinoceros seal's 50-meter range limit. The power and range of Quan Yi's flame bullets would increase with his control and soul power. However, the seal of the rhinoceros was different. It had strict distance limitations. Moreover, the seal itself wasn't designed for long-range attacks. Its main purpose was close combat. Chapter 48 Levitation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, to truly unleash the rhino seal's full power, Quan Yi needed to make contact with his opponent using his gauntlet. After all, even the most potent soul skill is useless if it misses its mark. Quan Yi had previously analyzed his own weaknesses, identifying two key shortcomings: a lack of ranged attacks and limited mobility. He had addressed the ranged attack issue to some extent, but his mobility remained a problem. Starting tomorrow, teacher Bai Yan's combat training would intensify, potentially forcing Quan Yi into direct confrontations. Without improved mobility, Quan Yi risked being perpetually on the defensive. Furthermore, his trump cards were almost exhausted. To maintain an edge in future battles, he needed to continuously expand his arsenal and capabilities. Quan Yi sank into deep thought. Years of studying soul masters had given Quan Yi a solid understanding and his own unique perspectives. He used vivid metaphors to explain martial souls, soul power, soul rings, and soul skills. The martial soul, the most vital instrument for a soul master, was his foundation. Quan Yi likened it to a computer. Soul power, the energy source, was like electricity. Soul rings were application software developed by soul beasts over countless years. By absorbing a soul ring, a soul master could essentially download this software onto their computer, making things easier. The relationship between soul rings and martial souls was complementary. The soul ring relied on the martial soul, but also amplified its power. Installing software was necessary to upgrade the computer system. Soul skills were the effects attached to the soul ring. Once activated, this software would run automatically, enabling the ring's functions. The older the soul beast that created the software, the higher its quality and effectiveness. Hence, the soul ring was considered a treasure in the soul master world. However, there was an exception: self-created soul skills. These represented humans developing their own software through ingenuity and applying it in combat. While soul beasts spent over a decade creating a soul ring, humans, through their wisdom and effort, could create a self-created skill comparable to it. This was the essence of human ingenuity. Quan Yi now realized that, given his circumstances, he could develop soul skills tailored to his needs. This discovery was significant. It meant Quan Yi could freely choose the soul rings he needed. because Quan Yi needed a soul ring with both strength and fire attributes, he often had to compromise on the skill's suitability. This prevented him from obtaining a soul ring that specifically enhanced speed. Teacher Bai Yan had advised him to prioritize strengths over weaknesses when selecting soul rings. Moreover, this was linked to his superior soul ring absorption plan. This was a major reason why Quan Yi neglected soul skill and martial arts training. In his view, those were mere techniques, not the underlying principle. He believed the real focus should be on improving soul power and physical fitness. His goal was to become a title Douluo as quickly as possible, and the ultimate soul ring absorption plan would accelerate his progress. But a soul master was, after all, a fighter, and skill development and practice were necessary. Quan Yi would simply have to make time to train his skills. Fortunately, his martial soul provided unique advantages in martial arts. Therefore, Quan Yi decided to focus on self-created soul skills. He wanted to create a self-created soul ability that would compensate for his lack of mobility. Quan Yi continued to analyze his strengths and weaknesses. Quan Yi was naturally fast, even faster than some beast soul masters. Thanks to his rigorous training and superior physical conditioning, this was his advantage, but against agility-based soul masters, his speed was still a disadvantage. In the realm of speed, a split second made a world of difference. This was a field Quan Yi couldn't dominate. Like a boxer attempting track and field, Quan Yi glanced at the black and red Liang gauntlets on his hands, but the sun gauntlets might offer a solution. I think I've found a way. A hint of excitement flickered in Quan Yi's eyes. He bent his hands towards his palms, then let his arms droop with his palms facing down. He channeled a large amount of soul power into his hands, condensing it in his palms. Fire, Quan Yi murmured. A raging fire erupted from the palm of the gauntlet, like the breath of a fire dragon, scorching the ground beneath him. The flames instantly engulfed Quan Yi's shoes. Fortunately, he was wearing shorts, or his pants would have been consumed as well. Huff, huff. Quan Yi continued channeling soul power, intensifying the flames and their roaring sound. Reaching a critical point, he held his breath, focusing all his energy on the flame. Quan Yi wanted to condense the flame. Focus. Under Quan Yi's control, the flame gradually shrank, but its color deepened, and its temperature rose. He concentrated intently, shrinking the flame as much as possible. The massive energy release caused his soul power to drain rapidly, but Quan Yi refused to reduce the flow. He continued to compress the flame jets in the center of his palm. Despite the consistent energy input, the constricted outlet caused the flame to shrink further, becoming brighter and condensing to the size of his palm. As the flames shrunk, Quan Yi felt an upward force pushing against his palms. A glimmer of joy flashed in his eyes. Quan Yi intensified his control, further constricting the flame jets. Suddenly, a powerful roar emanated from his hands. The flame jets' thrust increased dramatically. Quan Yi used the strength of his shoulders, arms, and palms to resist it. Under the force, Quan Yi's feet slowly lifted off the ground. He felt himself floating in the air and was ecstatic. Barefoot, with his hands shining brightly, Quan Yi hovered above the playground. He wasn't very high, only a few centimeters off the ground, but it was an incredible sight. Fortunately, the playground was empty, or such a scene would have caused an uproar. Under such intense control, Quan Yi's face grew pale. His physical strength was exceptional, but his mental and soul power were rapidly depleting, pushing him to his limits. Quan Yi slowly decreased the soul power input, and his body gently descended. The moment his feet touched the ground, he cut off the flow of soul power. Feeling the security of solid ground, Quan Yi laughed triumphantly. Ha ha ha, I did it. I did it. Chapter 49 Advance Mode. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 49 Advancement Mode. Landing. Quan Yi couldn't contain his excitement. He examined the gauntlet closely. Despite the extreme heat, it remained unscathed, with no residual warmth. The thin steel offered Quan Yi an unparalleled sense of security. Looking around, Quan Yi extended his right hand, palm out, and declared, with a serious look, I am Iron Man. That he held the pose for a moment, then dropped his arms, a little disappointed. Haha, that's cool. Azumi's imitation of Iron Man, a movie character from his past life, was a form of nostalgia. Besides, the Iron Man suit had inspired this experiment. Quan Yi was creating a high-temperature, high-pressure flame by compressing it and reducing its range. He wondered if this could generate thrust to improve his mobility. the result was better than expected. The compression created a thrust so strong, it actually made Quan fly. He could only levitate a few inches, but it was a huge step forward. It marked his entry into the realm of flight. Further compression and mastery of the propulsion could significantly enhance his mobility. However, Quan hadn't fully mastered this power. His control was limited, hindering flame compression. The propulsive force required careful calculation, demanding much practice. Furthermore, the lack of control meant that using it was powerful, but slow to prepare and easily detectable. Quan needed to focus on compression and condensation, aiming for speed and stability. Only an instantaneous burst from zero to full power would suffice for actual combat, creating an element of surprise. He wasn't there yet. Still, Quan didn't dwell on it, enjoying the elation. It was the first time in his life he'd experienced flight. Having never been on a plane, Quan had dreamed of flying, and now, he was making it a reality. After a while, he calmed himself. He sat barefoot, cross-legged, to rest and think. The experiment was a success, but far from practical application. His battle with his teacher was tomorrow, and his mobility issue remained unresolved. Understanding this, Quan quickly considered another approach. He could try directing the thrust backward to increase his running speed. This would provide acceleration, but he wasn't sure he could close the distance on his teacher. He discarded the plan. His conditions weren't ready for instantaneous acceleration, which the teacher would easily notice. Moreover, this extreme acceleration consumed a frightening amount of soul power, lasting only seconds before draining more than half of his remaining power. Too risky. What other applications are there? Quan searched his mind for a better option. Propulsion, propulsion. He repeated. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Got it. He slapped his thigh. I was stuck in a rut. Propulsion was a force. It had multiple applications, not just movement. Why not apply it to his attacks? The gauntlets covered almost his entire palm and forearm. He could adjust the fire breath's position to boost his punch speed and power. It dawned on him that even without fully demonstrating the propulsion's potential, he could still use it creatively. His plan: reduce soul power input and focus on microfire propulsion, decreasing control burden and consumption. With the ability to spray fire at will from any part of the gauntlet, his arm could execute unimaginable movements. For instance, he could enhance his punch speed and power. This was just the most obvious application, and many other uses came to mind. The power had limitless potential and room for development. Quan decided to focus his afternoon training on the propulsion mode, exploring as many possibilities as possible. His body also needed to adjust to the unfamiliar power. Losing control could disrupt his stance and expose his weaknesses, putting him at a disadvantage. With this in mind, he immediately meditated to recover his soul power. Once restored, Quan resumed testing his ideas. He found that the mode consumed a lot of mental energy because it required multiple, delicate, simultaneous actions. Even with his ability to multitask, it felt like his brain wasn't enough. Simply increasing punch power and speed proved difficult. Reducing soul power and firepower did allow for faster flame condensation, but stable punches required multiple jets around the forearm. A single outlet would not only fail to enhance, but also deflect the punch. This required controlling multiple jets at once, achieving a balance of forces so the propulsion and punch direction aligned. It reminded him of the saying, knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. Only by trying it did he realize how difficult it was. He still had a long way to go before mastering the model, but Izumi wasn't discouraged. He was excited. He believed in the mode's potential and that perfecting it would strengthen him. With his perseverance, he could do it. Chapter 50. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Taking it slow, Quan rubbed his cheeks, the cold, hard feel of the gauntlet snapping him back to focus. Easy, easy, he muttered. One step at a time. He reminded himself not to get ahead of himself. This was just a first try, no need to rush. Let's start with 2. He'd limit the fire outlets, focusing on what he could control. Pft, puff. With a surge of soul power, 2 miniature flame tails flickered to life on his forearm gauntlet, both angled backward. Almost instantly, they shifted from red to white, signaling that Quan had compressed the flames. The moment the color changed, he punched forward, using the propulsion Whoosh! The punch gained noticeable speed and force, slicing through the air. The sudden boost almost sent him stumbling, but he managed to keep his balance with a grunt. Nah, still needs work. The power was definitely amplified, but Quan shook his head, dissatisfied. He'd felt the two bursts of energy pushing on his arms as he punched. This slight deviation had thrown his aim off, missing his target. The punch and the propulsion weren't working together perfectly. Without dwelling on it, Quan took a breath and repeated the process. Whap, whap, whap. The playground filled with rhythmic crackling noises, focusing intently on each punch. He repeated the motion. He approached it like he was learning to box for the first time, carefully analyzing each hit. Quan knew there was no shortcut. Mastery would only come with practice. Day after day, his training gradually improved as he concentrated, blocking out everything else. He paid attention to the nuances of each punch, tweaking his technique to unify his power. When his right arm grew tired, he switched to his left. When his soul power dwindled, he sat down to meditate and replenish it. The entire afternoon disappeared in this monotonous training. As the sun began to sink, painting the sky with dusk, Quan finally stopped. He slumped to the ground, chewing on jerky, replenishing his spent energy. The afternoon workout had drained him more than usual. To save some energy for boxing practice in the evening, he was having an extra meal. As the dried meat digested, warmth trickled from his stomach, spreading through his limbs. A smile touched Quan's face as he savored the quiet moment. After an afternoon of trial and error, he'd mastered a basic balance of power. He was now able to achieve a degree of unity in his straight punches, delivering them without deviation when focusing. However, it still required intense concentration, and mistakes happened easily. Still, it was only the first day, and Quan was happy with his progress. He was calm. He'd initially been pumped and impatient because of the potential of the propulsion mode. But after so many repetitions, his excitement had faded. Great things take time. He realized that progress was all about accumulating small gains, just like physical training and soul power development. Even in just a week, he'd noticed his strength and soul power improving steadily. His body was changing, becoming stronger thanks to both soul power and soul beast meat. He'd recently noticed that his clothes and shoes were getting tight, not because they were shrinking, but because he was growing. His soul power also grew rapidly. As he trained in the simulation every night, the speed of improvement was no less than the improvement of physical strength. Moreover, Quan was constantly tweaking his soul power cultivation techniques. Although the results were minor, they were accumulating. They would eventually give him an edge. After finishing his jerky, Quan sat in the playground, using the break to think about the next day's sparring. He wondered what teacher Bai Yan had in store for them. Their victories so far had relied on strategy, but only because Bai Yan had underestimated them. Quan and Huo Wu, combined, were stronger than a level 20 soul master. Quan was stronger than a level 20 soul master all on his own. Bai Yan had clearly misjudged their abilities. Tomorrow wouldn't be so easy. That's why Quan was experimenting with new techniques, all to prepare for tomorrow's battle with his teacher. Even though she was a teacher, it was still a competition, and Quan wanted to win. Even in a simple training exercise, he wanted to give it his all. It was a personal rule. That's why he was always pushing himself, but he felt this pressure was exactly what he needed. A safe environment to hone his combat skills, and he didn't want to waste it. Thanks to the propulsion mode, his attack speed had improved dramatically. Even though it couldn't be used for mobility, Quan was confident that if Bai Yan got close, he could use the propulsion to land a hit. That way, even if Huo Wu ended up having to fight, Quan could preserve his winning record. However, a nagging thought had been bothering Quan since yesterday. He remembered what Bai Yan had said before their first match. She had told him not to be afraid to use the rhinoceros seal. It was an invitation to try and imprint the seal on her, knowing full well the implosion could hurt her. He originally thought Bai Yan was trying to use her clothes to resist the rhinoceros seal from being imprinted on her body. However, after the first battle, Izumi discovered that even with his level, soul power, the teacher could not stop the extremely close explosion. That also meant that if he managed to imprint the seal, Bai Yan would be in serious danger. Therefore, Bai Yan's nonchalant tone puzzled him. It was partly why he fought with Huo Wu in the next two battles, beyond just wanting to support his teammate. He had a nagging feeling, if the teacher had found a way to counter his rhinoceros seal, even the propulsion-enhanced speed and power of his punch wouldn't be enough to win.